start by telling you a little bit about my life story. October 18th, 2014. This is a date that will be etched in my memory forever. I had just finished swimming some laps at the pool, and my kids had just finished some swimming lessons, when suddenly my phone rang with an out-of-province number. And although I never answer the phone when it's a number that I don't recognize, something compelled me to take this call. And in a minute, my life was turned entirely upside down. "Is this Lindsay Lapaquette?" asked a voice. "I'm calling from the Ontario Provincial Police. There has been an accident." These are the words that changed my life forever. You see, my mom and my uncle had been traveling that day from Toronto to Montreal to visit us for my daughter's 3rd birthday party. Suddenly, I went from having plans to go out for a family dinner to no longer having the family I had always known. Life, as I knew it, no longer existed. The officer told me that my uncle had died at the scene and that my mom was being airlifted to a hospital in Ottawa. Just 2 hours later, as we were on our way to the hospital in Ottawa, we got a phone call telling us that my mom had also succumbed to her injuries. Life can change entirely in a heartbeat. Just 2 years later, I received a similar phone call from a neighbor informing me that my father had also died suddenly. I had yet to turn 40, and in the space of a few short years, I had gone from having never even attended a funeral to having lost 6 members of the next generation and having no more parents. The past few years have challenged me at the deepest emotional layers as I've struggled to deal with this curveball that life has thrown us, all the while raising 2 young children who both have special needs. In the weeks that followed the accident, I questioned if I would ever be able to truly feel happy again. The fragility of life had become so apparent, and I wondered if I would ever be able to let go of the fear and anxiety that now sat deep in my soul. Fear that came from the realization that bad things don't just happen to other people. Deep down, I feared that if I ever let myself feel happy again, maybe it could yet again all just be taken away in an instant. I am here today to talk to you about my journey with adversity so that we can all continue working to kick its ass. And although the examples that I give to you today relate to death, what I have to say here today relates to each and every one of you, whether or not you are dealing with some big family crisis right now. We all have to deal with moments of adversity in our life, big and small. So before I go any further, I would like each of you to think of some challenge that you've had in your life, something big or small, and I'd like you to keep that in your mind as I continue to talk. We live in a society where resiliency is defined as moving forward and bouncing back. We think that just moving forward is a sign of strength. People who go back to work immediately after a death are praised for their strength. People who are dealing with chronic injuries, chronic illnesses, who continue going about their regular life activities, even in debilitating pain, are seen as being inspirational. And people who finish marathons, nursing major injuries, are admired for their tenacity. But what if we redefined the idea of resiliency? What if we started seeing that there is strength in doing whatever you need to do in the moment, regardless of what other people think? My go-to response prior to the accident was the one that society applauds. Just move forward, keep going, and keep a smile on your face. But somehow I knew that this time around, that was not going to work. And I knew that I needed to start learning to live a different way in a world that I did not know how to exist in, one step at a time. So one of the first things that I started with was that I started to cultivate stillness. There were no conclusive answers as to what had caused the accident. The memories, the questions, the what ifs, these kept me up half the night at first. What if I hadn't canceled that trip I was supposed to go on that weekend when they said they wanted to come visit? What if they had airlifted my mom right after the accident instead of an hour later? I knew that I needed to calm the constant chatter in my mind before the fear and anxiety overtook me entirely. So I forced myself back to yoga even though I dreaded going. The utter stillness of yoga made my pain so real. Intentionally or not, we often fill our days with busyness to keep ourselves from feeling whatever it is that's going on inside of us. But I knew that if I didn't take time to be still with this pain, the rawness of it would stay with me forever. So although many people around me encouraged me to just get back to work as a way to make myself feel better, I knew that I needed time to honor my pain so that I could let it go. And as I worked to develop stillness through yoga and meditation and being in nature, stillness became a place to recharge from instead of a place to run from. As Eckhart Tolle said, when you lose touch with inner stillness, you lose touch with yourself. And when you lose touch with yourself, you lose yourself in the world. So the challenge I would like to give to you is to have each of you think about how you are going to cultivate stillness in your life every single day starting today. This can be through yoga, through meditation, going for walks, taking a bath, maybe just sipping a tea in a quiet room. Find something that works for you. And then I want you to make this a priority in your life every single day as a way to stay connected with your own authentic voice. So what is our authentic voice? Our authentic voice is knowing intimately in our gut what we want. It's staying connected with our intuition and staying out of our head. Our authentic voice guides us towards experiences and people that are going to replenish us, and it guides us to set boundaries around those that do not. Our job is to listen to and to trust our authentic voice. Do any of you know anybody who asks an opinion from 10 different people every time they have a decision to make? Have any of you ever been there? I know I have sometimes. So this is what it looks like when we lose touch with our authentic voice, when we don't trust anymore that we know what we want and what we need. Now, what about little kids? Do little kids do this? Do they ask all sorts of people if they should use the red cup or the blue cup? Do they debate for 5 minutes if they should wear shorts or pants? No, little kids know exactly what they want, and they're going to let us know this at the top of their voice. They are in tune with their authentic voice. Prior to the accident, I was someone who had lost touch with my authentic voice, or at the very least, I was choosing to not listen to my authentic voice and instead do the things that I thought I should be doing. After the accident, for the first time in my life, I started prioritizing what I wanted and what I needed. I started to listen to the nudges from my authentic voice. I started to say no to anything that didn't say yes to myself first. Saying yes to myself first was done in many different ways for me. It was saying no to parties and big gatherings that friends would beg me to go to right after the accident, knowing that that kind of engagement would drain me in that moment, and I'd instead focus on going to tea with one friend. It looked like giving myself permission to back out of commitments last minute when the wave of grief would once again knock me over. And instead of doing the thing I felt I should do because I had committed to it, I would allow myself to stay home and to engage in self-care. I chose to close a thriving business that I had just expanded right before the accident when I realized that I needed to take care of myself first. And then after the death of my father, I chose to step away from a new business with a good friend when I realized our needs were very incompatible and that staying in this business was not being authentic to myself. Saying yes to yourself first will open doors that you do not even know exist. As Paulo Coelho said, if you're brave enough to say goodbye, life will reward you with a new hello. But the thing is, you will not even know what opportunities are out there if you don't first close the doors on the things that you need to in your life. So how do we recognize where we're trying to go? It's our authentic voice that guides us there. For me, I started paying attention to which situations left me feeling angry and resentful. I started paying attention to which activities and interactions left me feeling recharged and replenished, and which left me feeling drained. And then I let these observations be my guide, and I tried not to get too much in my head. I want you all to think about something that you have done in this past week that you've said yes to that you really didn't want to do. It could be something small. What is it that held you back from saying no? Was it fear of rejection, fear of failure, financial fears, maybe fear of being alone? What do you need to let go of to let yourself walk through that door? And what if instead of saying yes, you said, thank you for thinking of me, but that doesn't work for me right now? I want to talk a little bit about an analogy of a bucket to explain to you my view of how resiliency works. So I believe that resiliency is like a bucket that is filled up when we have experiences in our life and interactions with people that leave us feeling replenished and relaxed. And I believe that this bucket slowly drains when we're exposed to experiences that don't nourish our soul. And our authentic voice, its job is to guide us toward things to keep this bucket full. When this bucket is full, we can deal with challenging situations. And when we don't engage in enough activities and interactions that nourish our soul, this bucket slowly empties. And we don't have what we need to handle a difficult situation. We're cranky, we're impatient, things are not easy. For myself, I think that I've known for a long time which activities nourish my soul. Somehow, though, in the chaos of raising 2 young kids with special needs and running a full-time business, I just slowly made this less of a priority in my life. With the death of my 2 parents, though, and my bucket being close to empty, I knew I needed to make a drastic shift, and I needed to put more of a focus on engaging in activities that nourish my soul. This became top priority in my life. My husband and I started using babysitters more often. My sister and I started camping together extensively throughout the summer, both of us choosing to engage in an extra day of family fun over getting another day's paycheck. I started choosing reading over having a clean house, fitting in an extra workout over getting another errand crossed off my list, and giving the kids a quick oatmeal dinner so that we could go for a nice ski after school. These became the staples that I fit into my life first, not the things that I only did when I could find time for them. We all need to engage in these activities very regularly. Yours may be very different than mine, but when we don't engage in activities that nourish our soul, our bucket keeps draining as if somebody's cut a big hole in it and all the water comes gushing out. And with it goes our resiliency. So I want you to think right now, what activities nourish your soul? And I want you to make a promise to yourself that you are going to make these the top priority in your life. And if you don't know yet what activities nourish your soul, go back to stillness and listen to your authentic voice, and it will guide you where you need to be. Now, it's not just the activities we engage in that guide us, that keep our bucket full or empty. It's also the interactions we have with the people around us. What I started noticing after the accident was that when my phone would ring, Sometimes I would run to get the call, and other times I would not answer at all. And I started becoming curious as to why that was. And what I noticed was that some people are not comfortable being around you when you're vulnerable and when you're in pain. Some of my friends needed me to just smile and pretend that everything was okay, but I couldn't do that. That emptied my bucket. I didn't have the energy for it. So I realized I was only answering the phone when I was talking to people where I didn't end up feeling more drained. And I made myself a promise to surround myself with these people all the time, the ones who I always ended up feeling with that my bucket was more full after being with them. I focused on spending time with people who were willing to talk about the hardships of life just as much as they were willing to talk about the joys of life. I surrounded myself with people who would just let me be me without judgment and accepted me for who I am. I started finding my tribe. And for those people who needed me to be something other than what I am, I started accepting that their rejection of me had nothing to do with me. A big piece in my journey has been working to not let fear get in my way. Do not let fear sit in the driver's seat of your life. This has been a big part of my journey through all of this. Fear of feeling my emotions was keeping me from cultivating stillness. Fear of not being good enough, not accomplishing enough, was keeping me from engaging in activities that nourish my soul more often. Fear of rejection was keeping me from being authentic in my interactions with others. And I made myself a promise to work through my fears. In the early days, working through my fears was simply sitting in the passenger seat of a car or watching my husband and kids drive off, terrified that they would never return. I pushed through the fear of closing my business by telling myself I could open it up another day once I had taken care of myself. I pushed through my fear that I wouldn't fit in as an eccentrics instructor because I don't have the typical fitness instructor body type, and I decided to work on my certification anyhow. I pushed through my fear of my friend rejecting me when I wanted to pull out of that business with her, and I had that dreaded conversation anyhow. Nowadays, when I recognize that it is fear that's holding me back, I make myself a promise that that is something I need to do in my life. I want you guys to think about how the limits that we set on ourselves are all limits that we have created ourselves. Whether consciously or not, those are the only limits on our dreams. And I want you to think about how it's often fear that is holding us back. I'd like you to jot these questions down. What do you want more of in your life? And what is holding you back? I want you to think about these things tonight. What if you acknowledge that fear and you slowly started pushing yourself out of your comfort zone? Oprah once said that death is a reminder to turn up the volume of your life. It doesn't matter how long you live, your days on earth are numbered. This is an absolute guarantee. Never lose sight of this. It shouldn't have to take a death or a tragedy to let us know that the experiences that we have each and every day could all be gone in an instant. Now is the time to turn up the volume of your own life. Every day, every minute, every second, before it is too late. Thank you.
Lindsay Lapaquette.